Come out for what? There we go. Next. All right. It looks like we're about 7 minutes out. Or tuning in after the fact. We're 7 minutes. About 7 minutes out from class. Let's see. I am looking for me. This stuff hasn't downloaded yet. All right, so we are in, I think we're in chapter 10, moving into 11. Let me double check that. I think 11 was discretion. That's simply strategy. It's discretion. Hate crimes, terrorism. Okay, so I need to pick up with terrorism, I think. Cool. All right, we'll wait for a few more minutes. We got about 6 more minutes, and then we'll get rolling. I'm going to step down the hall real quick here in a second. Water. In terms of things going on in the world, probably the biggest thing coming up is tomorrow is officially election day. So if you can and get out and vote, that's always a good thing, especially if you like to be involved in those kinds of things. Let's see here. When we first started out, first song I played today was Steelers Wheel Stuck in the Middle. That's one of those songs that I like, ooh, if that isn't just appropriate for the world, it's like, yeah. You got those two sides, you have to figure out that kind of thing. It's like, oof, that is never fun. But at the end of the day, you always have to realize that those elections, it's always important to go out and make sure you vote, but also realize that, at the end of the day, it's like that's on a different scale than daily. So always keep up with daily life, what daily life what actually matters. And those people who get elected, it's like they have some effect on it, but not that much, a marginal one. It's all about how you want to handle your life and the effects that you want to have and how you want to do it. All right, Dr. Hirsch, good morning. Let's see, so we got 4 more minutes. Let's see, things going on. Probably the only thing I can think of was election stuff. That's coming up tomorrow. I did tell my last class, I think I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to tell everybody how I vote and not the way that people always think. Whenever I say that, they're like, okay, we can vote. I'm like, no, that's not what I meant. How I vote. So this is how I vote. I don't know how other people vote. Usually what I do is there's a whole bunch of people, and usually there's a couple of choices involved. So what I do is I think about everyone in my personal sphere, and I figure there's going to be one person whose vote I get to cancel out. So I get to pick that one. And then I notify them afterwards. It's like, I cancel out your vote. And then the question arises as to whether or not I canceled out their vote or they canceled out mine. Well, in politics, there's no real winning there. That's the whole point of it. It's just enjoy it for what it is. Don't use the negative stuff. But that's what you're doing it. Let's see. So we talked about gangs a little bit. I can talk a little bit more about that, and then we'll move into career criminals,
one person. Bad things are gonna happen. And you have terrorists.
All right, cool. And then we got, let's see, the gun crime stuff I talked about last time. I can't remember if I talked about career criminals. I think I did. But then we need to move into terrorism stuff. And so that one's going to take a little bit of time to kind of talk a little bit about that. And then we'll move off into strategy stuff. But in the meantime, go get some more water. We are officially 2 minutes out. I'll be right back. All right. Welcome to class. How's everyone today? All right. I wish there was a way to make that text bigger, font size, but there is. Okay. So before we jump into terrorism stuff, let's see if there's anything I need to go back and look at here. Because I remember looking at what was it? Talked about career criminals, that kind of a thing. Hate crimes. I think I talked about that. We did talk about hate crimes, right? Right. Okay, good. Because that's what I thought. Because basically, when you start dealing with hate crimes, those are already criminalized actions that because of the nature of it, we decide to add in an enhancement to the punishments. It's something that we find particularly, and so that's hate crimes as a general kind of picture. Let's see here. Boom. Okay. So terrorism. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Boom. Okay. So when we're talking about terrorism, did we talk about terrorism in the last class? I don't remember. Maybe not.
We talked, I want to say yes, we talked a little bit about it.
Okay. So what's the difference?
We did, because you also talked about when American citizens commit terrorism and how if they get their rights taken away and all that stuff.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Cool. All right. So to recap that, what is it that makes it terrorism? Typically, it's that whether it's a political type of motivation, whether you're talking about governmental, religious, something of that nature, where you're talking about a number of people you're trying to affect there in a harmful way. When you start talking about the domestic versus foreign, probably the ones that are most interesting to look at are actually let's go finish this. Let's see here. Changes made in response to 2001. Yeah. I did show you guys that one last time. So now let me show you what's up here. Let's see here. So this is the family, I guess you'd say, that probably identify what problems we run into when we start running into like terrorist issues, and some of the complications associated with it, because it's something that's not as easy or straightforward as what people would think, or at least on the outset. Let's see, that's gonna be. Let's see. Am I still sharing my screen? Yes, I'm good. Okay, so you can see this. Let's see. This is an American Yemeni lecturer, alleged jihadist, killed in 2011. Okay. Oh, it's got cause of death here. Drone strike. Okay. This one was ordered by President Obama. Right. And so this is one of those things where I like this story because, one, as you go through it, because it doesn't just stop here with just this one. You can see how it crosses basically both sides of the aisle, kind of thing, because the party thing doesn't really have it. I mean, there are times it can, but not really. And so basically, we end up here as this person was allegedly a jihadist. Was born in New Mexico, 1971. Grew up in the United States, partially Yemen. Here, it's like what is this? Wikipedia is not usually the best source for information, but we'll use it just for its brevity at this point. I'm bump you around a whole bunch of news articles that are all dated because it's, like I said, 13 years ago, something like that. All right. Let's see. Repeatedly called for jihad against the United States. In 2010, placed on a kill list, and father civil rights groups challenged the court. U.S. deployed unmanned air drones to search for him and kill him. And they failed at least once, but he was killed in 2011. Nope, that's not what I meant to do. Back right here, look at that. So, person's father and 17, Muslim cleric. Yep, is the first U.S. citizen on the list of those CIA is allowed to kill. That's troubling, isn't it? So what's the function here? If the person was within the borders, you would not have that ability? Is that what it is? Because what you have right there is you just have a death sentence that was given without any trial whatsoever for one of our own citizens, because they're what? Outside of this country and dealing with a specific topic. Like, that's a problem. Let's see, it said 19. Yeah, I don't care about the ordering of it. 20. And that's the actual case. All right. Scroll down. Education, don't care about that, don't care about that, don't care about that. Does it move into other connections for a hood shooter? So yeah, there's a bunch of connections here. That's not what I'm looking for, though. Children, 5. Next one. Ooh. Gotten a little bit more offensive. If you read that one, what do you see there?
Kid.
Yeah, juvenile. 16. Close to adulthood. Okay. Oh, look at that one. 8-year-old daughter, 2017. That was during a raid. Like I said, so in the course of that, was she also a U.S. citizen? Let me look at that one real quick. Yep. Born United States, right there at the bottom. So there's another one, right? Realize the nature of what you're dealing with here is terrorism. And so there's going to be unintended casualties, I guess is a way to put it. I don't think that quite properly relates it, what's going on with this, because you've got that aspect of you're dealing with your own citizenry. Yes, they've left the country. Yes, they're engaging in definitely dangerous behaviors, but the damage is there. Like, oof. And if you think about it long term, what's going to happen there with people who know anyone to do with these families in those locations? Going to be the same stories that you hear here in terms of inner city areas that look at the police like that they're the problem because you're the ones showing up when people die. That kind of a thing. It's just same issues to some degree, just different levels, different topics. Same thing. So that's a very, very rough topic when you get into it. That's not what I wanted. Actually, it is what I wanted. So that was the end of that topic. So next up, now we start moving into strategy. Yeah, it's 10. Find this over here. Well, okay. So strategies, we like to have them. End up talking about broken windows theory. So if you or broken windows, the theory, we'll talk about the research itself a little bit first. Here, as we move into this, says, you know, impetus for changing in police. Yeah. Traditional police management reform has been undermined by research. Yes, research does different things. There's complex, whatever. I didn't like that. Yeah. And then recognize the role of citizenry. Yeah, those are all changes. Yeah, I don't really care about that. Let's move into this because this is where you get the substance. Broken windows, they call it broken windows theory, broken windows hypothesis. Basically, what you're talking about here is this is a bit of research that it's really atypical. When you get into it, it's if you're taking theory, you probably read this. If not, here's what happened. You got Wilson and Kelly. One of them was a police officer. I can't remember if they both were, but atypical in that this publication is not one that went into the research journals. It's not where it went to. It actually went into the Atlantic. Actually, I'll get it on my. Ooh, let me pull that up for you so you can see it. Oh, boom, boom, boom. Drive. I will say. Broken windows. All right, let's do this. Should have this in here. 14. Okay, it's not going to come up in order. Well, I'll have to look for it some other time. That's too bad. Because it's a good article. Basically, what they did was they set up a bit of research. They wanted to see, well, different areas of the cities and the effects that leaving a vehicle unattended would do there, right? So you kind of get the general idea of what they're trying to pull out here is they want to see, okay, what areas is something going to happen to this car, this vehicle? Because we know that some areas have some problems with cars. It'd be like talking about jokes about, you know, finding your vehicle on bricks kind of thing, right? You know, and you find them on cinder blocks, it's like that happens in certain areas. And that's kind of a stereotypical thing. If you really look at what, you know, how people present that. And so they wanted to test that kind of stuff. And so what they did is they took vehicles to different areas of the city. I had to think if I could tell you what city or cities, because I don't remember that. But what they found was they took this cars, and left them unattended in different areas of the city. What do you think happened?
50.
50-50. Yeah, no, actually nothing happened at all for quite a while. That shocked the crap out of them, right? This vehicle's unattended, even in the bad areas. They're not touching it. And so what they did is, they changed the study a little bit live right there, and they went out and they started breaking stuff on the cars. And so that way it looked like it was more run down. As that happened, ooh, yeah, that's when stuff started getting torn apart real fast. You kind of see I guess the neighborhood level where it's the nicer areas, it's maybe a little bit slower, maybe. The rougher areas, as they started smashing out the windows, people came in and joined, right? And so that's the area you're dealing with. It's different. But what they pulled out of that is that, you know, that image of a broken window is a sign of disorder. What they're talking about there is it's a signal that either someone does or does not care. And that's how would you put that? It's some of the underlying argument for why you have strict enforcement for certain things, where you have, and I'll move into zero tolerance policing in a second, because it's the argument for it. It's kind of built a little bit around deterrence and that kind of a thing, that if you're giving that.
I was gonna say, are you talking about like city ordinances, like where can't have like you just can't have clutter in the yard?
Yeah,
grass
you're
too
right.
high, stuff like that, because
Yeah,
you want to try to keep the appearance of a nice neighborhood. Nice
Mhm.
neighborhood keeps.
exactly. It's just gonna be everything from how many how many vehicles you have parked in your property, on your yard, how long your grass is, all that kind of stuff, to taillights, to seatbelts, that kind of thing, right? And so the basic lesson that kind of starts to get into is that, you know, the thresholds that we have for say thresholds, tolerances that we have for the lower level things send to some degree an indication our tolerance for the higher order, more serious. And so the general idea is that, you know, if we you know, regulate the presentation of a neighborhood in a certain way to make it look aesthetically pleasing, that the people who would come into the area, or the people there who would normally engage in criminal activities, are less likely to do so because they think people are watching. But it is one of those things where it's also a little bit of a mixed bag there too. You can send the wrong signals. It's sort of like bars in the window, right? You see the bars in the window, you know, someone cares about that stuff. I want it. What's in there, right? Or it's like, how big of a problem is this area that they have bars in the window? I ain't living there. That kind of thing. We're getting ready to say.
No, I was gonna say it's kind of funny because I remember, I was I was born here and raised in Fort Gibson, and little small town,
Mhm.
kind of the outskirts of the country. So I remember when I was, 18, out of high school, went in the Navy and everything, and got stationed in San Diego, and we made friends with everybody from all walks of life. And some of my friends, grew up in the city and everything. So I remember being out in San Diego, and like one of the first times, I bought a vehicle and we was driving around. I got lost. This is before smartphones were like real common to have, GPS on them and everything. And
You're the big man.
I remember we just stopped in a neighborhood, and I wasn't thinking of nothing. I was just trying to ask people for directions, and my buddies were like, "No, we need to get back in the truck." He's like, "Check out the windows on the houses. There's bars on the
This is a rough
windows."
area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And to some degree, that's exactly what we're keying into here. It's like when you go into these areas, you can, if you're looking, you can sometimes you get that, like the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, because it's just like everything here is just a signal that there's serious problems here. And so that's what they're keying into here when they got into the disorder, neighborhood decay, and crime, and that basically they're trying to put a time order to it. And the earlier it's easier to deal with. The two areas that they deal with are social and physical disorders. So physical disorder is going to be things like your whether it's the bars in the window, or abandoned buildings, boarded up windows is another. So see the big planks of wood kind of thing up over the window. Yeah. Social disorder, here it mentions public drinking, street gangs. Probably the biggest one, one of the big facts are those open air drug markets, because that's a huge signal that area is just hanging, right? And so that's a little bit about that. What else I need to tell you about that study? Like, yeah, no, it was literally nothing happened until they went to start breaking windows, and that's when they were able to start differentiating what would happen across neighborhoods a little bit. Okay, community policing. So let's see, broken windows is 70s, community policing, community oriented policing, all those different types of policing types. They start up in the 70s. In fact, when you really get in community policing, what it is versus what it does and how it manifests across all places of time, that is quite different. Realize it starts out with the research side, so you've got all the complexities of research. Here it mentions here philosophical, organizational, strategic, and tactical changes, right? And so you're talking about multiple domains that should be affected by this thing. When they went to institute it, they do it like anything ever with organizations that are in this area. What I mean by that, I mean like governmental. Federal grant money available for following these guidelines or taking these steps or making these changes. And so that happened in the 80s. Most of it was just like, we're going to add in foot patrol. And so that distinction for what this should do, what it does, didn't really come through in those first years, first decades, really. And I'll actually show you this because this is kind of one of those things that's really funny. Let's see, it talks about targets, community, organizations, and then using problem solving is the general idea that you're no longer just dealing with crime, you're trying to figure out what's driving it. And I just saw that over here whenever I pulled up this. It was in Drive. I think that was that Cordner? Yeah, it was. Boom. Elements of community policing. This is from, I don't have the date on it. Usually I have the date on these things. Right. And so when you start looking at this, this would be something from quite a while back. Here as it starts outlining what is community policing: philosophical, strategic, tactical, organizational. And so across each of these different domains, and this is just one article kind of thing. One, I think this is a book chapters where I just might have to look at it again. You can see it's like, okay, philosophical. That's when you start getting towards like that spiritual nature of the organization, mission statements, those types of things. It's like, you know, they can be real flighty, lofty, not mean anything, or they can actually mean something. And for this, it should. You're talking about things like citizen input, right? The more you draw them in, the better it is. Change in functions, right? Rather than having specialization, more people become generalists that way. More of your people can deal with a wider variety of problems, right? And so that way you get the maximum, what would you say? Efficiency, effectiveness, both kind of things. From here, it moves on into, you know, service, that kind of strategy. Reorient your operations. Basically, what's it's talking about here is changing your activities, increasing things that increase the amount of citizen-officer interaction, but also flattening the organization, kind of thing. Reducing that administrative structure so that way more of your resources go into that types of things. And so each of these things will have multiple here, geographic focus, tying into actual people. Prevention, tactical, interacting with people, partnering, that kinds of things. So they literally, across each of these different levels, multiple facets. Right here, so we get the organizational stuff. But structure, decentralization, flattening, despecialization, more team civilianization, management, everything from the mission statement, plans, mentoring, and that kind of stuff. What ended up happening? Yeah, usually like foot patrol stuff like that. What's happened in the meantime? That's stuff that's been changing over time. And so you've had a number of organizations, number of departments that you know have moved a lot closer to what that original intent was and more closely aligned with what works, that kind of thing. As this moves into talking about it, it's going to highlight that role of community, because that role of community is, yeah, it's everything, right? Talking about the roles that citizens play, the community is your citizenry. And so both control, prevention, that kind of thing. You're talking about consultation and mobilization. So consultation, meeting with the community, that kind of thing, to evaluate what it is that they need, what it is that they want to see, what problems that they think that they're experiencing, all that stuff. So you can start to address it, start to address their specific issues. From there, getting everybody working together, right? Complementing each other. And yeah, that's just where it keeps talking about effectiveness. Police where the community has collapsed. Agencies need to make 3 changes: structure, culture, and management. So the structure stuff, like see that in that PDF I pulled up, or they'll talk about it here. Same kinds of things. Flattening the structure, organizational culture. It's one where you're trying to work more with the community to sort of not transparency, but there's another word. Yeah, affects visibility, and community policing stuff is in training course. Problem solving. So you guys have, Sarah, scan, analyze, respond, assess. That's your basic process for most anything. They use it in, I think they mentioned in this chapter. There's probably 2 slides down, actually, now that I think about it. Here's a talk about Chicago. We'll come back to that one. I guess it didn't. It's much farther down. We'll come back to that then. I'll talk about problem solving more here, because that's one of those it's a process. In fact, that process is the same kind of one that you do if you do like program evaluation and that kind of analysis stuff too. Because anytime that you're assessing something, it involves that same cycle. Okay, Chicago Alternative Policing Strategy Program. So I'm not as familiar with, but this is where they were trying to do that, to build that community element. Let's see, public house plan, closing of station houses. So basically mixed results, made some changes. Yeah. So community, it says problems and prospects. Here it talks about the police role, decentralization, and accountability. So as you become more decentralized, you integrate with the community more, you have that accountability that it's needed. Let's see. That's also another way to address issues with poverty, racial relations, that kind of thing too, because you're integrating with the community. Yeah, there's not really much in here. Here's where it starts talking about problem-oriented policing. So this is going to be titled community-oriented. This is where they move into scan, analyze, respond, and assess. And so here it mentions Goldstein recognized this complexity, drafted some stuff related to the legal aspects of policing. Here mentions here. A lot of this is associated with the nature of communication, the way that we're notified of issues itself. And so that reaction versus proactive aspects are part of that problem. And so to address that, to move from reacting to crime to that more proactive side, this is what they propose. This is, like I said, it's the same kind of process that you'll find in really any type of assessment. It's going to be a cycle. First one, it says scanning here, identifying problems. That's literally always the first thing is look to see what you have in your available, immediate environment, what issues and what resources are there. It's the kind of thing you start looking at what's here. Second stage, analysis. Okay, you start identifying, okay, the problems that are here, what are they? What types are they? How big are they? And then are there areas that look to be, I don't know, would you say? You use the phrase cause, but it'd be more like aggravating those situations, making it worse, that kind of a thing. Sometimes you'll find that there are multiple causes, or you'll have singular causes that span multiple things too. All right, so here they focus on actors, incidences, and past responses. So if you think about it, the general ways that that we look at stuff, and even from the research side, it's in that kind of general framework. It's like if you're talking about methods here, this is where you talk about you can analyze people, you can analyze the crime incidences themselves, or you can analyze the places where they take place, kind of thing like the locations, the environmental aspects of it. And so that's those kinds of things that they're kind of bringing here for the analysis side. Response, ideally based on those analyses, you have some ideas for how things generally work. And with that, you can determine what it is you might need to change and what potential direction or effect it will have based off of, you know, if you're using like the math side of things, methods, literal math numbers. Then when you do it, you can actually test it after the fact, see, is that what it did? That'd be like saying, okay, here's it's 2018. Y'all did this here, legalized medicinal marijuana, right?
2018.
Yeah. And so let's say that I don't know what the argument was, but let's say it was specifically to curb the number of marijuana arrests in the state, right? So you can see it's like, okay, how many people have marijuana arrests? You could analyze and see how many of them have health issues that they're addressing for it, that kind of a thing. And you can determine, okay, so if we open this up as an option, this is the amount of the number of arrests we kind of project to drop, right? And then you can go look and see what actually happened in those years is not really any change. You stayed about 3,000 marijuana arrests per year kind of thing on that one. It's like no change. So it didn't address the problem. So that'd be an ineffective one if that's what it was trying to do.
Because it was only legalized medicinally.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
fully
Yeah,
decriminalized.
it's not the recreation kind that everybody wants to get into. Yeah. And so it's like, yeah. And so that's kind of how this stuff works is you just, as you're making those changes, you follow back up to see if it actually does work. Realize that most organizations do not do this. I'm being pessimistic there, but that's one of those things that
I'll say one of the cool things, I mean, it's kind of on topic, kind of a little off topic.
Mhm.
There's a lot of cities. One that I found that the earliest implementation of it was like back in '93 by LA, but like a lot of cities across the US, like LA, Indianapolis, Atlanta, to kind of target both the problem solving and the community aspect of that. What they did is they started offering programs for officers to either be able to buy houses at low cost and low interest rates, or they would like subsidize their rent in areas that had like higher crime.
Yeah.
To try to place officers in those neighborhoods.
Yeah, make them more safe. You'll get to know them. You'll get to know who the problem people are. If there are problems, you get to know where the problem places are and that kind of thing. Yeah. And yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. That's actually the positive side of those jurisdiction requirements. Usually I talk just about the negative, where it's like you have to live in those areas in some of those places, you know, that kind of thing. I usually don't talk about it because that is the very positive side of that. Excellent. All right. Effectiveness here. Yeah, basically it can be very effective when it's used. That's kind of what they're getting across here. Boston Gun Project, Operation Ceasefire, same kinds of things. Big reductions in homicides, some reductions in fear, and some positive effects towards policing. Let's see. Focused deterrence strategies, they call that pulling levers. Again, so we're talking about deterrence, we're trying to deter things, realize that this is one that as you get to it is more specific. Yeah. Here it just says the future of problem-oriented policing. It holds a substantial amount of promise. I love it. Okay. So here's where they start moving into zero tolerance policing. So this is one of those directions that broken windows can move, right? Where it's talk about order maintenance here. The strictness through which that they move into these topics. sends multiple signals. So it's one of those things. It sends a signal that could be a lever for some of those other issues. Here it mentions stop and frisk, that kind of thing. It's like person-based zero tolerance policing strategy. So zero tolerance there. Basically what they were talking about there is this, that's kind of a hot topic issue, depending on how you look at it. There's standards for stop and frisk. Did we talk about stop and frisk in here before? I'm trying, because I've had to talk about it in my evidence class. And I think I had to talk about it. No, I think it's just evidence class. I couldn't remember if I talked about it in here. I can't remember. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about it. So stop and frisk. Here they mentioned stop, question, and frisk. The question's a different aspect of it. If you, anytime you're involved, you can ask questions. It's one of those things that's, just normal conversation. So stop, question, and frisk. There are legal precedents, specifically associated with the questioning part, but we're not going to get out of stop and frisk. Anytime you have a stop, realize that that's not the same thing as a search or a seizure, a full seizure, and arrest. It's a very limited type of seizure. And so the justifications there aren't as high as an arrest, but also the intrusions there, because you're talking about something that's going to be very brief, very, very cursory. And if you get into the frisk, it's literally just like the pat down kind of running things over, not like the I'm gonna stuff. What's this in here? That kind of thing. And so application does matter. Frisk itself is specifically for protection. So that's the thing it's supposed to deal with. But what it does is it also gives you the opportunity to develop probable cause should you touch something there that is like not a weapon, but is also illegal or something like that. Drugs being a primary thing there. What do I want to say there? We talk about zero tolerance here related to that. I need to go back and read the book I have on that because the first thing that pops into my mind is usually what I talk about anytime the topic comes up is actually a political thing from I think it was 2016 election, where you had both candidates were talking about this and both of them were wrong. One of them said it was completely fine. The other one said it was unconstitutional. It's like neither one of those things is accurate. It's like the zero tolerance aspect of it can be very, very dangerous depending on how you deploy it. That's New York City. That would have been, I don't remember the year, maybe 2014, I think. Basically what happened there was they were trying to deal with the crime problems they're having there. So one of the ways they're dealing with it was through stop and frisk. They're using that to drive down crimes, gun carrying, that kind of stuff. They're having issues with it. Does it work? To a degree. What also does it do? It opens the opportunity for infringements on people's civil rights. This one is a very limited infringement, justifiable infringement. Not what they were doing in New York, though. In New York, that's 35. How far are we in this? Yeah, that's pretty close to it. So if we have time at the end, I'll show you a video related to it where you can hear an audio recording from one of those encounters. It's just like, ew. It is very rough to hear because you have all the hostilities of like you say, I think it only had 3 people involved, but conflicting parties and that kind of thing. So it's like it's not fun to listen to. Basically what happened is they started running quotas. To get those quotas, they targeted minority areas. So it's like, yeah, disparate treatment. No, that's not how that works. And so they had, if I remember correctly, lawsuits, consent decrees, and that kind of stuff to address it. And I want to say we've already talked about consent decrees in here. Does that sound familiar? No. Okay, so consent decrees. I'd mentioned them here, been really quickly, briefly in passing related to the Americans with Disabilities Acts. That kind of stuff. Whenever you're found to be in violation of that, or some other like, what would be another example? Let's just run with that one because that's what I think of. Equal opportunity would be another one, right? If you were doing something that's clearly in violation of that act, it's or disparate treatment or something like that, like what was with this. Basically, what happens is consent decree. You're found it's guilty. The enter consent decree, which has money attached and time frame. you pay so much in penalties and you have so much time to fix it. And if you don't, more penalties come in. So they hurt the organization's money stream that way. And so New York, they had to enter in one of those related to their use to it because they violated a whole bunch of rights. So it's like it's not unconstitutional, but it can certainly easily be applied that way. Realize that if you're doing it with zero tolerance, it starts getting to there very, very quickly. Let's talk about range real quick. So zero tolerance would be where on the range for permissiveness. Just go ahead and say the first word there.
They're not going to ask for your permission.
No, this is zero. Yeah. So when we're dealing with zero tolerance, there is no tolerance for this thing. Realize that the range shifts for stuff that we're dealing with ranges. Usually talking low level stuff for this. But it can be more serious, but that range can be everywhere from zero, like as in we will not tolerate any violations from this whatsoever, to 100% permissiveness, as in we don't care, we will not enforce this whatsoever. And so that's something to think about, because you can have both of those. You can see the on both sides of the scale there are negatives and positives associated both, and so you have to kind of weigh what it is you're dealing with at that time and how it's manifested. So it'd be like here versus here. Like you want to look at the negative situations. Look at what drug use in Oregon, right? You're gonna see a lot of, because they're much more permissive with it. More people move the area, more people use it. And so as that stuff clusters, it increases and it's worse. Over on the zero side, we'll say, yeah, seat belts, right? You're poor single female mother. Seatbelt's broken. They don't have money to fix it. Do you give them the ticket? If it's zero tolerance, you do. You have no tolerance, you can't. It's part of it, right? You can't take into account the fact that what you're going to do here is going to cause more trouble in fixing the problem. You're actually making it worse. You're making it harder for that person to fix that problem. And so that's the trade-off. How strict do we want to hold people? Realize that how that manifests for people individually can be really good or really bad on both ends of the spectrum in both directions. So it's a very dangerous thing. Here it talks about reasonable suspicion. That's the threshold for the stop. It's different than probable cause, but this isn't like legal aspects or anything like that. We're going to get too heavy into that. So I'll just leave that there. Oh, and it should only last long enough to dispel that reasonable suspicion. That kind of thing. So that's how you tell whenever the stop is done. It's if it develops any probable cause, you move into an arrest. If your suspicions for whatever it was you had have disappeared, good, let them go. Probably talk about pretext stuff a little bit, but I don't think that's this class. Pretext stops are where you have somebody who either get a stop or arrest. You get a justification for it, but that's not really the reason why you're doing it. Be like, yeah, you ran a stoplight, but really, it's like everything that's going on with this vehicle makes me think that there's some type of contraband in mass quantities in it. Let me take a look. That kind of a thing. Let's see, characteristics of zero tolerance. Yeah, crime attack model. So it's more aggressive. Yeah. Very specific in both type and place, and somewhat militarized. Here it says, instituted 1993 in New York. Panhandling, vandalism, drunkenness, urination, prostitution. Crime dropped. So this is 1993's. Seems to be effective. Okay. So very effective. So what's the negative here? Is there a negative here?
Mhm.
Right? Think about the people you're dealing with and their problems and that kind of thing and what happens to them. I'm gonna stop with the panhandling. We'll just go with that one, right? So you're dealing with people who have nothing, who are trying to, I guess, use goodwill from others to be able to survive to some degree for whatever the purpose is. Ooh, if they're too aggressive, they don't get to be there anymore. So they have to find someplace new to go, right? That's an imposition. That's a vulnerable person, right? Take the public urination thing, right? Okay. On the flip side, California, San Francisco, right? You don't police it at all. What ends up happening, you have to set up a crew to clean it up, and you're not able to. And so it's like there's danger on both sides here. Can it work? Yeah. Okay. Proliferation. You're just going to talk about how zero tolerance policies have spread. Okay. What it does, it can create conflict. It can encourage aggression. And yeah, there you go. Has an effect on persons' immediate and future employment. I'm going to start talking about arrest records. Getting a high number of arrests that are good arrests, convictions, that kind of things. Like that's a really good thing to have. However, you've now got an environment that is rewarding, is not just rewarding to those types of things, but is actually pushing towards having more of it. Aggression taking that nasty form. And since we're dealing with issues, those who have issues usually have them in larger numbers. As you deal with more and more issues, one of those issues is going to be resources and money, right? Because money can address a lot of issues. So poor communities, minority communities, overlap them. There you go. Now you got disparate treatment. Okay. Now, National Academy of Sciences reviewed this. Zero tolerance policing concluded, yeah. Strategy is mixed and depends on what they're actually policing. Community-based zero tolerance policing is a focus on reducing physical disorder. We're having a significant impact. So community-based zero tolerance towards making places look good. No evidence whether the policing strategies are effective. And then when person-based zero tolerance policing strategy used, evidence is still mixed. Just like everything, it's mixed, which means there's a debate to be had. What that also means is that means to some degree, there's going to be a bandwidth in here for what's actually functionally workable. We just have to figure out what that is for any given place. And it's finding that moderate ground, that middle ground. And that isn't always a hard thing to do. I'll tell you what. But regardless, with that, that gets us through chapter 10. Any questions? Sound good? All right. Well, we'll catch you guys on Wednesday. You have fun. I'm getting ready to run back down the hall, get more water, and get geared up for the next class, which is, ooh, there was a chat on here. I never notified me. It's a tie. Bye.